President, if it were up to Republicans, we would have finished the appropriations process months ago. We made a lot of progress on restoring the appropriations process. This past year we had, for the first time in years, actually moved 11 of the 12 appropriation bills across the finish line under regular order, something literally hadn't been done in years. And I think if you go back to when the last time they did all 12, might have been 30-some years ago. But that progress was disrupted. It was disrupted first when Democrats shut down the entire federal government in the fall. It was disrupted again when Democrats refused to fund the Department of Homeland Security in February. And it was disrupted yet again when Democrats walked away from bipartisan talks because they refused to fund law enforcement and border security. Mr. President, for 67 days now, Democrats have refused to fully fund the Department of Homeland Security. That is unacceptable. And it's why Republicans are going to move forward this week with a budget resolution that will allow us to take up a funding bill for the law enforcement border security components of GS, and to prevent another reckless attempt by Democrats to defund law enforcement. When we next take up appropriation, Republicans will fund law enforcement and border security for the next 3 years. Now I say reckless about the Democrats, Mr. President, because that's exactly what they are. Democrats are refusing to fund the agency that protects our nation's borders. Think about that for a minute, Mr. President. Let's vaccine in. Democrats are refusing to fund the agency that protects our nation's borders. These are the people who not only stop people attempting to enter our country illegally, but defend our nation against a number of threats. In fiscal year 2025, Border Patrol agents apprehended 460 gang members trying to enter our country illegally. They apprehended 73 known or suspected terrorists, Mr. President, illegally crossing our borders. They seized almost 87,000 pounds of illegal drugs. They're the ones capturing the human smugglers, the drug traffickers, and the criminals engaged in human trafficking. Not to mention that they are the ones conducting rescue operations when illegal immigrants are drowning in the Rio Grande or dying of hydration in the desert. And Democrats want to defund this agency. They want to leave our borders completely unprotected. I'd say they want to go back to the days of the Biden border crisis, when you had literally tens and often hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants flooding across our southern border every month. But it seems Mr. President, Democrat may be looking for something even worse. Mr. President, Democrats are also refusing to fund Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and that is the agency that removes criminal, illegal immigrants from our country. Like criminals who are in our country because of the open border policies of the Biden administration. Do Democrats really want to go back to the days when criminal, illegal immigrants were often allowed to live freely in our country? We owe it to the families of Lincoln, Riley, and too many others to keep our community safe, and that's what ICE is doing. The American people support that mission. Democrats apparently don't. I expect we're going to hear Democrats this week talk about reforming ICE operations. Here's what I don't think they're going to talk about. The White House reformed how ICE operates on its own months ago. And on top of that, the White House repeatedly offered Democrats a robust package of legislative reforms. But nothing was ever enough for Democrats. They kept moving the goalpost and eventually, they just walked away. Mr. President, Democrats may have decided to abdicate their responsibility to fund crucial government agency, but Republicans will not do the same. As I said, the budget resolution before us this week will unlock funding for law enforcement and border security at for the next 3 years. Mr. President, for the past year, Republicans have operated in good faith to fund the federal government with Democrats. We made considerable progress, and as I said, passed 11 out of the 12 appropriation bills. And we were on track to pass a bipartisan Department of Homeland Security funding bill until Democrats walked away. Mr. President, I suspect our Democrat colleagues will cry partisanship. Heard it from the Democrat leader this morning throughout this process. The Democrat leader had the gall last week in this to accuse Republicans of embarking on a, quote, partisan circus to fund law enforcement and border security. And it would be funny if those words were not so hypocritical. Democrats and Democrats alone.
And Democrats alone
have made this process partisan. Republicans been over backwards to work with them, but it was never enough. And we've run out of time to play the Democrats' games. We have a job to do, Mr. President, and Republicans are gonna get it done. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of corn.